All right. Welcome back to another week of Trading Prep with the Trading Triangle. I'm your host, Trader Nate, and I've got with me, as always, Sean Clark and Kaye. Kaye, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you doing? Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday, sir. And Sean, how about yourself? Doing well?
Yeah, good. It's actually getting warmer here in the UK, so I'm very, very much looking forward to that. So yeah,
Man,
looking forward.
I got the opposite sentiment here in the desert. I'm like, it's getting warmer. Good stuff. Yeah, we got a lot of interesting charts to get to. Earnings week is kicking off here, we're getting into earnings season, I should say, not earnings week necessarily. And got a lot of good stuff to talk about. But before we do, real quick disclosure up front. Of course, this is not intended for financial advice, nor should it be taken that way. We're not professionals or anything along those lines. We are just three traders having a good time talking about our trades, and hopefully it provides some entertainment and educational value for you. So thanks for tuning in, whether you're tuning in on the Trading Triangle on YouTube or through our live stream at Trader Nate here on X or on Wolf Financial on either of those platforms as well. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you subscribe. By the way, I'll drop that in real quick to the Trading Triangle on YouTube. Smash that like button. And yeah, we will get right into it. What do you think, guys?
Let's do it.
I will say, you might beat me to it there, Kaye. I was gonna say we are gonna have a guest on at the end. By the way, we'll have Will from Granite Shares joining us, so that'll be really interesting conversation. We'll have that at the top of the hour, and of course, as always, get your requests in so we can take some ticker requests at the end of the show. And yeah, I think that's everything. Did I miss anything, Kaye?
No, we're good. Let's do this.
I love it. All right, let's get into these. Last week's overview, got some red, got some green. It was an interesting week. Volatility ticked up quite a bit, which we'll look at. Any names jump off the page to you, Sean?
No, not really. Apple doing quite well, actually, up 4%. I think that's quite impressive, considering obviously the rest of the market throughout. But you can see there's a lot of red there, isn't there? Perhaps the kind of smaller size caps being hit a bit more from what I can see here. But yeah, nothing really jumping off the page apart from Apple.
Anything stand out to you, Kaye?
No, pretty similar to what Sean's feeling. I think the Friday was a real dump that we had in the market. But pretty much, it was kind of expected.
So the thing that stood out to me was banks are all red. We had banks starting to report earnings Friday. I was hoping that there would be some buying leading into it and banks maybe helping continue to power higher instead of having a red week. So more bank earnings this coming week. We'll have to see how that continues. But yeah, that's the heat map for last week. And the performance. So like I said, VIX volatility, VIX over 18. I don't remember the last time we saw that.
It's long time back. Yeah, we used to be in 13 and then 16 and then we are now 18.
Yeah, exactly. So 1850 used to be the low water mark, and now it seems like that was a long time ago. So that is notable, I think. Put to call at 0.83. Any thoughts on that in particular, Kaye?
No, I think we are ticking up slowly. We used to be 0.7, then 7.1, 7.2, 7.3. Now we are coming to 0.8. You can see in the fear and greed as well. I mean, used to be closing to the extreme greed. Now we are actually getting into the fear territory. We are almost touching the fear in like couple points.
Yeah, and look at all this red. I mean, small caps did not do what you wanted them to do, right? I mean, I keep talking about them like, come on, let's get there, and completely sold off. So it was a tough week. SPY, QQQ, diamonds all down. Q's actually basically flat relative to everything else, and then Bitcoin giving it up and continued to over the weekend a bit. So, Sean, we're squarely in neutral category. That was a big drop from last week or the week prior, I think. What are your thoughts around last week's performance? Anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, quite natural reaction from CPI, I think, wasn't it? Had a big drop, and it continued to do so on Friday after a little bit of a hope on Thursday. But I think we're about to look at SPY and QQQ. We're reaching those kind of key levels for both of them in terms of the moving averages. So it'd be interesting to see your guys' thoughts on that. Just also on the key events page, we've got this week, we've got jobless claims. And we've also got Jerome Powell speaking on Tuesday, which I forgot to put in there.
Right.
So if you are trading on Tuesday, do be aware of what time you're trading, because you know what he's like.
He's what, like 2 p.m., right? That's when he will speak, I believe, 2 p.m.
Your time, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good note there too. Jay Powell talking, he does like to move markets and slip in little lines that we all react to. But yeah, it was definitely a down, obviously a very down week, a pullback week. But when we look at the charts, I think from a longer term perspective, it might give you a little bit of different look. But before we get to that, I mentioned earnings. We are starting to ramp back up. More banks. I've got a couple of charts from earnings this week and some more noble names. Kaye, I know you do too. Anything you're looking at in particular, Kaye, though, outside of what you have this week, actually? Netflix
And SLB. I think I'm also looking at the TSMC and ASML, mostly in the semiconductor space.
yeah.
From a bank standpoint, I think we have a couple banks on Monday. I think we have Goldman Sachs, you have M&T, you have Charles Schwab, and then we go on Friday with American Express. I think those are real key bank players over here as well.
Yeah, I got that American Express for sure, and taking advantage of being able to talk about that chart. What about you, Sean?
For me, Netflix is probably the main one. I mean, obviously the banks as well, but not too up to that. Not really bothered about that. But Netflix, obviously the first one of the tech, really the big tech at least. See if they can continue their amazing recovery since COVID. And obviously the chart looks pretty good, and we'll get into that a little bit later on.
Nice. Yeah, definitely looking at semiconductors as well. You mentioned that, Kaye, and TSM, probably most interested in. But yeah, here we go again. We're going to see if earnings start actually moving the markets. We'll get some bigger names in the coming weeks, and this is going to get us nice and warmed up. Should have some good opportunities. And looking at SPY, like we always do to kick things off charts-wise. And by the way, guys, keep those ticker requests coming in. I do see we got RIVN, one of the first names dropped, so we'll take a look at that later. Note that, Sean. So, okay, for SPY, we got a little bit of additional selling going on, right? This is multiple weeks, and pulled back, broke the 20-day moving average significantly, and for the first time in quite a long time, right? I mean, that hasn't happened since the start of the year, start of the year.
Yeah, you're right. Start on 1.5, we had the first dip below the 20-day moving average.
But that was quickly bought up, right? Yeah. And then another dip was quickly bought. It was like a single day, and then back above.
Exactly.
And so here we've got 3 candles below. Now we're testing the 50-day moving average. So I think that's notable. I did pull in the 150-day moving average, which you guys know I like, just as another additional reference point lower. I don't know that we're looking at that much of a pullback, because if you look at this, right, it's still basically sideways action despite, making a lower low, which is not great. What would you add here, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, just touched on it there, kind of sideways action. Not much has really changed if you just go back about a month or so, maybe even less than that. So we did a bit more of a significant move downwards if we are to kind of, think a bit more bearishly. But I'm still very much in the bullish camp just because of this price action kind of going up. Trend is your friend. Yes, we've broken the 20 moving average, but the 50 is still well intact, at least for now. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad you've zoomed out on this chart because you can just really see the move that the SPY has really made. And in terms of comparison of where we are now, kind of pulling back a little bit, it doesn't look like it's kind of harming it so much at the moment. But yeah, looking at kind of 500 psychological, if we do break it, and that'll probably be my adding point, if that makes sense. So yeah.
Yeah, I like that. How about you, Kaye?
I think so. From my perspective, I think there are two key things that are happening. One is, of course, the market is waiting for the earnings season to kick it off, especially with big tech coming up, starting with this week, next week, and so on. So we'll get that. And the second is a geopolitical situation that is, unfolding with Iran and Israel. So how that plays out, nobody can predict. That will, of course, have some impact, if not major impact, at least some impact you'll feel in the short term. But I think the earnings season is really going to be the main driver here.
Yeah, you're right. The news over the weekend and how markets react at the open will be interesting. We'll get the open a little bit later today in the futures market, and we'll get a little bit of a sense maybe. I think that all that news and everything going on in the world is worth letting markets digest early on Monday, for what that's worth, before you get a little aggressive in either direction. But keeping it rolling, looking at the Qs, I mean, this really is consolidation, right? Kaye, you like to call it barcoding, and that's what we've got going on with the Qs, right? All the big tech names. This is the daily candles. I did stick with the daily, and I mean, sideways action. We did get the 50-day pulled up nicely and providing some support there. I think that's some positive signs you could look at there, kind of like higher lows and holding that 50. You see that as well, Sean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, 100%. I think we're building quite a nice big volume bar as well, kind of where we are at the moment. So that's going to be another kind of confluential point going forward. But yeah, until it breaks either way, I'm not really looking at the cues. Well, I'm looking at the cues obviously daily, but for a trade wise, probably not at the moment.
Yeah, just holding off to see which way we go.
Yeah.
How about you, Kaye?
Yeah, I mean, same sentiments, and I think more than SPY, I think QQQ is really driven by the tech. So all the main tech companies that are going to report earnings, starting with Netflix, most likely following week will be Tesla, Microsoft, Meta, all those big names that drive the market. I think that is going to set the tone for the couple coming weeks, I would say.
Yeah, I think maybe even trading some of these big names would be pretty interesting. I've got 434.75 at the low end of the range and 446.58 at the top end of the range for the Qs. I'm basically waiting either to, I look at this two ways, right? You can either trade the range and wait for a rejection or bounce on either end, and then trade accordingly, or wait for that breakout on either direction and wait. I would wait for a retest or a second candle to confirm, the directional move after that break. So those are the things I'm really looking for. I will say if it breaks lower, I will be more inclined to go short with a heavier position maybe than I would be to go too heavy long, just because of this extended move. I would still take a long position, but maybe a little bit less so at first and start adding if we continue to run. We'll see what happens. All right. So hand it over to you, Sean. What do we have up first this week?
So first we have Square. Obviously, we've got a couple of fintech names this week, and it's just kind of what I've seen on the charts. And they're both weekly charts. So I'm looking at a bit more of a long-term perspective here. So you can see here, Square, we brought up a few times actually in the last couple of months, actually, I suppose. And we brought up on the daily and kind of breaking out and kind of testing, that kind of thing. But on the weekly here, you can see it's kind of broken above in the last kind of 5 to 6 weeks. And it's just taken a bit of a pull back. And it's bounced off the 20 moving average in terms of the weekly side, and it's just hovering above that kind of trend line breakout line, as you can see there with the white line coming through the screen. So really, really simply, I want it to kind of basically bounce off this line, nice tight stop loss, probably where all that volume is down below there. So probably about 68-ish, that's not too bad. And very simple targets, kind of 85, 90, 100. The ultimate target being obviously 129, right at the top there, the top right-hand corner, because that's the 200 moving average, which is just flatlining for basically years now. So despite of kind of Square's made its move, can it make it even further? We'll soon find out. On top of that, I'm just going to look at the kind of yellow circles I've drawn there, and it's just making higher highs as you're kind of going up into these kind of main resistance points as well. So that's another thing to kind of note for that one. I spoke pretty quickly there, so I hope you can keep up.
I'll tell you.
I'll hand over to you, Kaye, because you're a Square man.
Well, I think the 50-day moving average is a key level here, for Square, and they do report earnings on 5/2, so about two and a half weeks from here. So I really think that they probably are going to be in this range until we get to closer to the earnings, and then we can see some kind of like a movement based on the direction of how the company is for the rest of the year, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, it's a swing trade. It's not so much a shorter term trade, but you can kind of see the setup moving into further years. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Also from the option standpoint, right? I think as we get closer to the earning season or the earning date, we are going up from 0.69 to 1.20. So
I'm liking this, Sean. I gotta say, I'm writing all this stuff down. First of all, the fact that you're bringing forward the weekly chart, that's just a much more powerful chart than shorter term durations, and the fact that we've broken above now, retesting with that 50-week moving average right there. That is the 50, right? Is that what you were saying, or is that
the 20 is the blue one? So.
Oh, the 20. So sorry, yeah, that's right. I do it backwards on mine. And so the 20. Either way, you're getting that support there as we're making the higher lows, and then now we're retesting that trend. I mean, this is a great setup. I can't believe how flat that 200-week moving average is. So I'm glad you called that out. Yeah. I was going to ask you what is that line up there, but that is because it's so flat, But yeah, that seems like a great point to drive towards, right? If we do get a breakout here, And given that these are weekly, that could be a really nice longer term trade, right? If we get a nice move here for block.
Block,
Exactly.
yeah.
That's what we're aiming for. Yeah.
Nice. Keep it going.
Absolutely. Let's keep going. So this one is PayPal. So this one's a bit more of a similar setup with a few more details kind of around, entry points, etc. So imagining kind of Square's kind of come down to that level already. PayPal's kind of heading down towards that level, at least in my opinion, of course. So we've got ourselves like a downward channel, of course, and we've kind of broken above that, kind of come up to kind of 66, I think that is, and obviously retreated back down to kind of where we are now, around that $64 mark. What I would like to see here from PayPal is a little bit more of a retreat back down to kind of 62, 63, where those two yellow lines are. And then you can kind of have that confluence of all of the volume profile, the two moving averages, and a retest of the trend line as well. Again, this is a swing trade looking kind of for years for this one. And ultimately, a move back above 66 and to hold that would be my first, I don't know, positive reaffirmation, or whatever you would call it. But yeah, and then obviously moves up to kind of 77, 88, and hopefully above 100 at some point in the coming years. So a similar sort of setup, but something that's kind of, in motion, whereas Square's kind of at that point of, execution. So yeah, what are your thoughts on this one?
I'll jump in here and say I think I see a head and shoulders pattern, reverse head and shoulders pattern. Right?
I didn't see that. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and so that's 68 that you're looking to break there. I mean, that's the neckline, and I would love to see it just absolutely run if it break through there. I was one of the skeptics when, I think there's a lot of chatter right back here. So what was this? Was that late last year? Yeah, late last year, and then it sold off a bit, and I was like, yeah, see, I was right. PayPal's going lower, and then boom, here we are, recovered really quickly. So yeah, reverse head and shoulders here could take off.
Awesome.
But also, if you notice, right, at these levels, the volume shelf really is like there is no strength in the volume shelf. Most of the volume is around the 15.8, 59, $60 level. So unless we see some kind of like a catalyst that can move the stock up, I don't know how long we can sustain at these levels.
Earnings? Could be
Yeah,
a catalyst. Yeah.
Earning is on 4:30. It's right around the block time frame. Yes, you're right.
Yeah. So that's interesting. But I mean, in terms of trading this one, would you perhaps start a position now, or would you wait for that kind of point where I'm waiting for, kind of 62, 63? Would be your kind of
If I was going to open, I would actually wait for pullback around the 60 level, 61, 62 before.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And let me also take a look at the earning. I'll give you a quick rundown. So I think they do have a couple down revisions. Actually, they have 22 down revisions on the earnings versus only 4 up revisions. And they have actually missed they have not missed the last 4 quarters of earnings. So that gives you some confidence in what they're looking at.
Nice.
That's pretty impressive, actually. All right, good stuff. Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, that's it for me. I mean, you can get me on X. I'm a bit quiet at the moment. I'm taking a step back and reviewing my kind of content strategy, etc. But if you're feeling generous, you can follow me over there, and obviously subscribe to me on YouTube, and you can subscribe to my newsletter as well. So yeah, I'll see you over there on those platforms, and I'll hand it over to Nate.
Good stuff. Be sure to give Sean a follow on X, and definitely his YouTube channel is one of my favorites as well. So I will highly recommend both, and the newsletter as well, because they're all 3 there. And I'm going to throw this over to TSM. Now we've got the next chart up here. These are daily candles. So Taiwan Semi, we mentioned, has earnings this week. And it looks interesting here, guys. I mean, we're testing the 20-day, and if it breaks, the 50 days moving average is not too far behind, which also would be a level of support that we've seen. It was prior resistance. It's been tested a couple of times here at 134.75. So we have a retest there with the 50-day moving average being, right at that spot as well. I wouldn't mind seeing it bot back up, get above the volume shelf, and if it does, seeing a continuation higher, trying to retest that high of 158.40, and get back up there and see if we can continue moving higher, see if semiconductors in general can continue the run. But RSI is strong, even though things have pulled back a bit. And overall, I kind of like the way this is allowing us to get in potentially before another move higher. Do you see the opportunity there, Sean?
Absolutely, yeah. I completely agree. I was just looking at the higher highs, higher lows, should I say, kind of leading up
Yeah.
to this kind of move that we're in now. I wouldn't suggest maybe a pullback to that kind of 134. I might see it a bit higher than that, maybe 140, just because of that extra higher low element kind of moving forward.
I'll
That's
be
what I
fine
like to
with
see.
that.
If you come back down to 134, it looks like a bit like a triple bottom, which it's a good thing, but also not something I normally trade on typically. But
Gotcha.
yeah, I like the higher lows generally throughout the chart, and yeah, I'll be looking for that 140 level for sure.
Nice. Kaye, you mentioned TSM. You trading this one? You own it?
No, I don't own it. I'm not trading. I'm just watching the earnings season and looking at the put to call ratio. We actually have 0.67. So you have a lot more call options. So you have 201,000 call options versus only 134K put options. So definitely very bullish sentiment on the options chain.
Nice. Bullish options sentiment. I'll have to take a look at those as well. Yeah, so that's TSM. Maybe could help lead additional move higher here, get it started for the semiconductors. I think it's getting more attention these days, this name, right? Getting more headlines. And so we'll see what happens there. Definitely on my radar and reports this week. Next chart I have is American Express, AXP. So talking financials first, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this one. XLF, our financials ETF, has been just blasting higher. American Express, AXP, is part of that. And then you can see this trend line here. It's been tested before, and we made a really nice, strong move off of it. And that was right around earnings. So this big candle here is right after earnings, the prior earnings. And then we continue to run up. Now we're getting a little bit of a sell-off, testing the trend line, testing the 50-day average. And we have earnings again this week on Friday. So I'm looking for potentially a repeat of history and get another big move higher. This is one where I actually would consider getting in early this week if we hold the trend line and don't break down. And even if it does break it slightly, but holds this 214.25 level, it wouldn't be a bad spot to get in and look for a recovery and possible earnings boost to get us to new highs. And that would be, targeting getting above 232 basically. So yeah, I like it. We're here just above. Let's see, we're at 218, just above 218. So it'd be a decent move to get above 232. Not a name that I usually trade, but I do like the setup here. Sean, I'm going to throw it to you first. What are your thoughts?
Just one logical thought, and that's just kind of the Amex consumer base tends to be quite rich, I suppose, or
Yeah,
higher
they're
end in terms of
affluent.
that. And they're definitely not stopping spending at the moment, are they? So there's definitely
Right.
hope for Amex and the earnings report. I'm not putting words in people's mouths, of course. Anything could happen. But yeah, I like this chart where it is. I like the kind of trend line where we're sitting on it. I would agree in terms of getting in, starting a smaller position, and obviously adding to it after earnings, depending on what happens, or just cutting it. What I would say is a word of caution. So if we were to break this and earnings weren't so good, come back down 2 or 3%, you're already talking about 205. And then you're kind of in no man's land then. And I think we do kind of head towards that gap fill, kind of 190ish. So that's kind of a big move downwards. So just a bit of devil's advocate there. Probably not what you want to hear, Nate, but you never know. If we have a particularly bad earnings, forecast is not so great, then down we go.
That's why the gap is highlighted there, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you have to consider both sides of the trade always. It's funny. I'm glad you're kind of hitting on that. I've been asked that recently by one of my newsletter subscribers, a Trader's Education, shout out. And yeah, they're asking, why are you just pick a direction and commit to it. And I'm like, look, I tell you, I'll lean bullish or bearish, right? But I'm always ready to take either side of the trade, because if the bullish trade breaks down and the bearish trade is very obvious, why not take it, right? If it makes sense,
Yeah.
to your point. If all the things line up and it's an obvious trade that you would take, then go ahead and take it. So
I
yeah,
want to make a point on that one, right? I think this is a very interesting point you made. I think what ends up happening is we, as investors or traders, we start loving a stock, right? And then what ends up happening is that puts some kind of a pink vision for us. Like we just love it, and then we just want to marry that stock. That's the problem when you're trading or investing. When you marry a stock, it becomes very difficult when somebody says anything, wrong about it, or, and you cannot do that, because if you then, you're always bullish. Take any stock, for example, like, you take SoFi, Palantir, any, when you have their fans over there, even if it's going down, they'll come up with all the reasonings why it's going down. But if you're trading, you cannot do that, right? Long-term investing, I understand that you are bullish on the company, you're bullish on the vision, but when you're trading short term, I don't think we need to be married to a stock.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many opportunities every week, and we talk about them, right? And they're always different and move from stock to stock. So, yeah, good points. All right, well, that's my 2 charts this week. We'll see. I just noticed the daily volume I left off. That was not intentional. That was just me moving too fast. I'll get those added back in next week.
Yes, just to add to that, what you said. So there is a lot of bearish sentiment on the options change on 419.
Noted. Really?
American Express is 1.49. But also the implied move is about 4.3, 4.4% on the earnings.
That's quite a bit balanced.
Yeah, but it could still, if you really have a bad earning or a bad guidance, you could see, further declines. But but just keep that in mind. But there is a negative sentiment.
Noted. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to fly right past it. And a 4% move, I agree, Sean. That's pretty big for Amex. So, all right. Well, again, you can find me at Trader Nate here on X. If you're tuned into the live stream, make sure you give it a like and a repost. I appreciate it much. Also live streaming at Wolf Financial, and I write for his newsletter. We post on Sundays, and is a featured writer for his newsletter, and then also Trader's Education, which is my newsletter. So be sure to subscribe to that. And with that, I will hand it over to Kaye next. What do we got first, Kaye?
Awesome. Thank you, Nate. The first one is Netflix. This is a daily chart. Maybe I should have done a weekly as well on this one. I don't trade this one, but there's a very interesting pattern that the stock was at bottom at 160s back in mid of 2022. Since then, the entire of 2023 entirety has been on an uptrend. So just for the upcoming earnings, which is on Thursday after close, is earning per share is about $4.54. Revenue $9.29 billion for the quarter. We have 20 up revisions and 0 down revisions on it. And generally, the implied move is about 12%. You will notice that since the last earning, we had this massive gap up, which has not been filled. And if you step out and zoom out, you will notice that this stock has been an uptrend since the 2022. So 2 key points to watch for Netflix. One is, of course, how's the subscriber growth did they get? Because this is all about this is what moves the stock. And second would be how is their ad platform performing? Because now if you watch Netflix often, you will start seeing those ads, popping up unless you're paying on the higher tier. So I would just continue to watch. We are about $80 away from the all-time high of $700 of Netflix. They were the all-time high at 799 cents. So we could continue to see more gap ups.
Go ahead, Sean. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, so this one for me is a big trade after earnings signal, because literally anything could happen. We've seen in the past, you mentioned just a second ago, this one moves as well, quite viciously, especially if you get poor numbers, great numbers. It's up kind of 15, 20%, after a few days. But that's also plays into our advantage. So if you have that move initially, you break down the report while it's doing all it's moving for the first few hours and the day after. And then you kind of break down the news, you come up with your own kind of thesis and think, oh, that's actually not too bad, or that's actually terrible. Then you kind of trade with that, okay? So you just trade with the news and, hopefully make some money.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm always surprised by the volatility in Netflix. Like, I feel like it shouldn't move as much as it does. And I don't know why. I don't have any reasoning behind it other than maybe it's just a really big name, right? But I totally agree with everything, all the points you both just made. I would say that you could, trading ahead of earnings is just so risky. I like all the up revisions, but it's a huge move, and you're either going to be making a ton of money, or really, if you're trading options, it's going to go to zero if you're in the wrong direction. So I guess if you do want to take that prior to earnings approach, like, just keep that in mind. You may not get any kind of exit near your stop loss. and because it could all happen before the markets actually open, right? So something to keep in mind there. But if it does, get a nice pop, and then we get some profit taking and some selling off, you might want to consider, look at this chart, right? We got a big pop last time, and then it just continued to power higher as people realize like Netflix is really the leader in this category of live streaming. So definitely one that's on my radar. The volatility again is just
crazy.
You got to be a good trader. You got to be really on point with your trading, right, Kaye? Like
it's 86.9% implied volatility right now on this stock.
Yeah, so your options are going to be pretty juicy.
Yeah, but I'm definitely not touching this one.
Are you in it long term? Do you like Netflix?
I do have it for long term position. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. All right, good stuff. We'll keep it going. What do we got next?
Yeah. The next one is your favorite, Nate. You have not talked about this one for a while. They are reporting earnings as well. SLB. My only concern with SLB right now, it was a nice uptrend, but then we had this massive down candle on Friday. And the interesting part about this stock is that if you look at all the other energy stocks like ExxonMobil's and the XLEs, they are all going up higher, Oxy and everybody. SLB, on the other hand, and is just, was barcoding since the $60 and we fell down to the $50 range. And then since it's been, I thought that we will get the benefit while the energy stock is going up, but the massive selling on Friday kind of gives me a little bit of shaky feeling on what's going on this one. Coming up earnings, we have a revenue of 8.7 billion. So see, if you notice, they bring the same amount of money like Netflix. They were 9 point something. This is 8.7. 13 down revisions on the stock as well. And the implied move is not as big as Netflix. It's only 3%, approximately 3%, less than 3 actually. So we won't see that. But I'm a little bit concerned with the Friday's movement on this massive selling.
Yeah, you saw that across all the energy names, right? And that's tied back to the geopolitical news and all the concern there. So I'm wondering, and I'm really glad you brought up SLB because I wanted to make sure we touched on energy. I meant to do it at the top, actually. I'm wondering if this is going to provide us with a buying opportunity for these names, right? It's tough to say because it's just one big red candle. But if this news is absorbed by the markets and you start seeing like that selling subside and these candles start to regain their confidence and start moving higher again, like that initial kind of turning point back higher might be a good entry before we see energy continue to push higher. I don't think energy moving higher is great overall for the markets and definitely not for consumer strength, but just stop talking about the sector and these names. I've been thinking about this all weekend. Is this pullback going to be a buying opportunity for the sector?
Yeah, Sean.
Yeah, and that's the way you have to kind of look at it, isn't it? If you see these downturns in any sort of sector, you think, is this an opportunity? That's what we're here in the markets for. We're here to find opportunities and make hopefully a little bit of money off of them. So yeah, I think that's really well said, Nate. Thank you very much. But nice. Yeah, in terms of the chart, I mean, you're looking at all hopes are kind of pinning on that 50 moving average, aren't they, at the moment?
Yeah,
that's kind of all that needs to be said. But earnings on Friday, like you say, that would be an interesting event. I've voted it down, so looking to see what happens there.
Good call, Sean. But just to jump back in there, the 50-day moving averages across many tickers are being tested, and it's actually making it, for me, I don't know about you guys, a little bit difficult to find really good setups. It's like, well, I don't want to jump anything Monday. I kind of want to see how things play out to start the week for many of the names I'm looking at. So
yeah, I think there are three things happening, right? One is you have Jerome Powell speaking, you have earnings getting reported, you have geopolitical going on. Yeah. With everything going on, it's just too many events and too volatile to actually set up those trades unless you are doing a very short-term trade, scalping and even day trading.
Yeah, or just take lighter, smaller positions and maybe don't go so crazy and tighten up your stop losses, right? Take measures along those lines seems to make a lot of sense to me. But all right, Kaye, this is good stuff. Where do we find you?
Yeah, you can find me on X. I also have a YouTube channel, so you can definitely check it out there. And finally, I actually restarted writing on Substack as well. So if you want some energy comparison, the next article will be the energy comparison between the XLE and the VDE. And we did the tech sector last week. So definitely check it out over there.
Nice. Appreciate that. All right, guys. So we did mention at the top of the hour, get those ticker requests in. If you haven't done it already, go ahead and drop them in the comments, and we will start getting through that list. We got a few names already to start off with. Like saw RIVN and Tesla near the top, so we'll get over there. And then, yeah, we'll keep it rolling as long as you guys keep these tickers coming in through the top of the hour. And then I want to mention again that Granite Shares will be joining us, and we will be able to get a great insight from Will. He's going to talk about the different ETFs that they offer, long-term investing type ETFs, really interesting stuff. They got a disruptor ETF. It's really interesting names within the holdings list. And then they've got leverage ETFs, so ways to play both the upside and the downside. We're single ticker ETFs for like names like NVIDIA, AMD, Tesla, Apple. Like, it's a really interesting list. So we'll be getting to that at the top of the hour. Make sure you stay tuned. And yeah, I see the names coming in here. I see AGI, VITL, PAS. Got those listed. Got RIVN, Tesla Coin. I think I see APA. Yep. All right. Yep. We'll keep them coming. Let me jump over to those charts. You guys, earnings kicking off and getting heavier. I'm actually kind of excited about. Like, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I feel like some of these names are going to really give us some opportunities post earnings or even heading into them. So it'll be good, and we'll see what the Qs do with the big tech earnings. Not too long. What is that? A couple weeks away? 2-3 weeks away.
Yeah, not far.
Yeah, it's good. All right, let's see here. I've got clear this stuff out. Just looking all right. You guys see my chart all right? This is SPY, of course. And what should we go with first? RIVN?
RIVN, yeah, let's do that.
Let's do RIVN.
Right. Sean, do you have any thoughts on RIVN before I start talking on it?
I like them long term, very much so. But they're kind of, I said it a few times before, actually on these calls. But the next kind of 6 to 9 months or so is going to be very tricky in terms of earnings, in terms of making money, and obviously the new models, etc., not going to be available to 2026. That's another kind of concerning point. But they've got a very good customer base, they've got a very good product, so there's definitely hope there for RIVN as a kind of logical point of view. In terms of the chart, and I've said it before, now we've broken that kind of most recent $10 level. There's no end in sight, really. You're going to have to wait for a bounce, a higher low, and then make a move higher above a moving average in order to kind of even think about getting back in from a trading point of view. But I'm still adding little tiny bits in terms for my long-term portfolios, but nothing too dramatic. Just to keep a nice small percentage in the portfolio to this particular company. But I like them for the long term. Yeah, so overall, probably what I should have stuck with.
Yeah, I forget what the news was on last earnings, but you can see this big drop holding nicely, right? And so we had this sell-off, which we had some resistance here for RIVN around 1550, call it 1570, and then a nice big breakout, which ended up selling back off. But you could see it was like trying to hold that prior resistance level here, right? Like, I don't know why I didn't just draw that in. This is trying to hold, and then earnings. This is our last earnings event, and it just could not hang in there. Sold off. You can see the big gap, and now this volume shelf forming. This is not great to see, but this could be a shakeout before a return back up to this level. That's what I'd be watching for, is to see if there's just a quick little, shake of the paper hands, like as they like to say, and then maybe a recovery. If it gets back above this 20-day and then starts to make higher lows, that would be constructive. But yeah, in the short term, it's tough to trade this one for. That's for sure. Kaye, what are your thoughts on RIVN?
So I think in general, I think the growth of EVs, right? That it's not growing, and Tesla is kind of driving that as well, right? So the news in general, if you look at all EVs, whether you're looking at NIO, RIVN, Tesla, Polestar, you name it, pretty much all stocks are getting hammered across the board.
Mm-hmm.
And I think until that narrative changes, I think we will continue to see pressure on these stocks. If you're investing, I think the opportunity comes is let see the bounce before you add on it, because we don't know, it could go down from $9 to $5 as well. Who knows?
Right.
So I wouldn't be comfortable adding right now into my long term position. I would want to see a reversal and then kind of add so that I can hedge myself.
Yeah, I think those are wise words. I am a fan of RIVN, just like personal anecdote. So I hope they do well. I would really like to own maybe one or two of these bad boys, so I can put my dogs and everything in the back. Doesn't fit in the Tesla, but
Hey, question. We actually got a audience question. Is it
oh,
possible
yeah,
to make the chart a little bit clearer or bigger? Is it possible we
Yeah.
can zoom in?
Expand it up a bit.
yeah, I could do that.
You've done it before, I think.
Let's see. What if I do?
Oh, this looks. Yeah, this definitely looks much better.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
That better?
Yeah, I think definitely
Okay.
much better.
Yeah, no problem. This is the thing. I'm on this super wide screen, which is awesome. But yeah, I had to adjust. All right, good. I appreciate the comments. So we make sure we get this easier to see. Let us know if this is better. Yeah, so again, RIVN, I think the sentiment for all three of us here is, pick your spots carefully, but probably waiting for a bit of an upturn and recovery is wiser at the moment, given the sentiment around EVs in general. I think you nailed it, Kaye. So let's keep it in this lane and go to Tesla next. And yeah, you can see another trend line that was, trying to be broken. We've got earnings coming up. I have gap listed here, so I must have had a gap in here. So I don't know. What do you guys have immediate thoughts? I'll throw it to you first, Sean. I know you study Tesla quite a bit and all the names in this space.
Yeah, I do like this space, I must admit. Nice price action considering the market, etc. The last kind of week or so, and also the EVs, like you said, Kaye, not doing so well. But Tesla actually not doing too bad in the last kind of 6 or 7 trading days. But generally, I think the earnings coming up is going to be interesting to say the least. I mean, obviously deliveries have been hammered and lowered and etc. So is that going to impact their bottom line? I think it will. But it depends how much they can guide for the rest of the year. And they've already kind of lowered those kind of expectations. So it's not looking too good for the future. But from the chart point of view, you can see a nice little breakout of the trend line perhaps. It's got a little bit more work to do to get through the moving averages. But once it gets through that kind of 50 moving average, I'm seeing at least 200 in sight, definitely. Which is around about 180, I can see. Ish.
Yeah, that 50-day right here at 180 is definitely the target. I would agree. Kaye, what are your thoughts on Tesla here? I mean, I was getting a little bit bullish as we started making these higher highs and higher lows, and completely ignored. Just so you guys know, real quick. Sorry, I threw it to you, and then I'm taking it.
No,
right
that's
back.
okay.
This bad boy right here, right? I was watching this making higher highs, higher lows, and I did not pay attention to the tightening rising wedge, which when you're in a downtrend like Tesla was in, this is basically a bull trap. It could have broken higher, but it turned in, so you don't know if it's going to be a bull trap or a bear trap, but it was possible, right? We fill the gap and then we reverse lower and we break this lower head of lower range of the trend or the triangle, excuse me, and then continue selling. And so I was like really bullish right in here, like, oh, we're going to break above here and continue. And no, this actually made a lot of sense. Hit the trend line, fill the gap, and then reverse is what we got. So all of that to say that I broke my confidence in Tesla. And so I don't feel like I can trade this without bias right now. I'm feeling really bearish on Tesla. So I'm staying away because I feel like I'm just clouded by missing that previously. All right. Having said all of that, what do you think, Kaye?
So what if you actually go further down to the most recent trading days? I think 160 level has provided a good support level. We have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bounces from there, and yeah. So, and then what I'm noticing is, of course, the news came out about I think 8.8 is when they're going to announce the next robotaxi fleet. I think there's a lot more talks about Tesla now. From bearish, I think Cathie Woods is also coming out of the woods a little bit and talking a lot more about Tesla. And she actually picked up a lot of stocks with the recent downturn. So I think momentum is building, but in general, the clouds about EV growth has slowed down a lot. And honestly, I am still trading Tesla on a weekly basis, and because I'm selling at the money puts and then basically rolling them off. So that's how I'm taking advantage of it. And generally, when you're doing covered calls, for the last run that we had, we sold covered calls for a week, 2 week out, and then basically just rolling it out or closing the position with a substantial profit. That's how I'm trading, but nothing going big, keeping it very tight range with between $5 or so, $2 to $5.
A question in the chat around Tesla Energy being a positive catalyst. Do you guys have thoughts on that? I'm not as familiar with the Tesla Energy story, but
I know about FSD. I'm hearing that Tesla is slashing the FSD packages by 50%. So I think what is happening is, like, generally the analysts, they will look at these things in a short term, quarter to quarter. But if you think about it, if a lot more people, they get into the FSD, they buy the subscription, and they like what they see, it's a trap, right? Once you get used to a facility or service that you like, then you are going to keep it if it's going to be recurring revenue for Tesla. And I think from a long term standpoint, it's going to be a game changer. But short term, it's okay. I mean, it gives off a vibe that Tesla is not doing good. But I think I'm a long term, I'm bullish. So I'm a little bit biased in my opinion about Tesla. But I think FSD, as it improves, and more people actually sign up for subscription, is actually going to be a big revenue source for the company.
Yeah, I think it's a testament to how Tesla is seen a bit more of an ETF in a way, just because the diversity within the company can really bring in different sources of revenue. So just wanted to touch on that a little bit. So just thinking of Tesla as a bigger company than just an EV company. And obviously energy is going to be a big part of that. FSD is going to be a part of that. Robo-taxis as well. I mean, I don't think the world needs them yet, but, so be it. It's happening. But yeah, no, Tesla's one for the future for sure.
I would say this, right? A lot of YouTubers, retail YouTubers who finance content creators, who they take Tesla, they make it like robo-taxi. Tomorrow, everybody will be flying on a robo-taxi. That's not going to happen, right? Because infrastructure, everything has to play accordingly. So Tesla, but if you notice now, you would probably see more Teslas on the road than other EV car companies. Like I do see Hyundais a little bit here and there, but I don't see that many Polestars. I don't see that many Rivians. Rivians are there, but not as much as you can see on Tesla on the East Coast side. I can't comment on other areas, but EV is growing, and I do think, but the problem is, a concept gets launched and people just think that they will reach the final stage of that concept in no time. But these things take time. It's a big infrastructure change that's going to happen across the board.
I will say, and there's great comments out here by which is a great handle, by the way, Honest Man Searching for Truth. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for the questions about Tesla. Yeah, the supercharging network. If this is something that is just, it looks like we're getting widespread adoption, right? Additional source of revenue potential. Like, there's just, Tesla's obviously way ahead of everybody and has margins that far surpass everybody in the as far as the competition is concerned directly in the EV space. So the fact that they've got all these other things going on to bring in additional sources of revenue could be hugely positive. It could be distractions, depending on your thoughts on it. But I understand the thesis that this is not just how many EVs are we selling. There's more pieces to the puzzle here. So yeah, interesting spot for Tesla. I haven't been adding to it just yet, but man, I'm going to probably regret it, where it's going to launch off of 160 and I'll be complaining to you guys again.
You did last time. Yeah, you did complain a lot.
Good stuff. All right, let's move it on over to Coinbase, since we're going to talk about names that make me complain a lot. We'll go to Coinbase next. So we mentioned this last week. I think I actually drew this line last week, this trend line, and we did break above it, which is nice. The selling on Friday, right back below the 20-day moving average, is not great, but we're basically consolidating for Coinbase here. And I wouldn't mind seeing kind of this level now. Let's see where we at. Something like 236, 236.50, somewhere in there to hold up, right? And if you can hold that maybe even let it go to 235. But if it holds 235, it's holding the upper half of what I'll call as a range here between 212 and 270. And I would look at that as a positive sign, especially after kind of break-in, and look for it to continue to move higher and retest 270. That's where my head's at initially for Coinbase. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, no real extra thoughts on this. I mean, looking for a kind of a trend line breakout, because you can kind of see it setting up there. But with everything happening over the weekend, you could easily see that come straight back down below kind of 236-ish. And obviously then that wouldn't be a trend line breakout. It could be a high risk one, of course, so you can get into it like that if you keep a nice large stop loss, but kind of 212, but that's very high risk for me. I'll be staying away from this one.
Yeah, it makes sense. Kaye, what do you think?
Similar sentiments. I think if you draw the volume profile, most of the volume is at 228 level. And right now, if we draw Fibonacci from all the way from from 2724 to 325, that's the Fibonacci I'm taking. I think this 243 has had a decent bounce, so that could be a good support level. But if that breaks, my next point would be 228. That's where the majority of the volume shelf is. And if that breaks, then I guess we'll look at the chart when that breaks.
Yeah, it's going to be tough with the news over the weekend. Let me remove this and clean it up real quick. One thing I was going to bear with me, guys, to see if I can draw this really well. I might do it. Oh, where'd it go? What I'm going to point out here, maybe if I can get the drawing on right and not take up too much time, is I think we might have a little bit of a head and shoulders potential setup here.
Yes, right? Yes.
And so we'll have to see how it plays out. But if we do get this selling off here next week, I would be looking for, I guess 236 is that level. And if it sells off below, we could continue to see a drop. That being said, there's different points of support here. 212 and then 187, which that is quite a bit of a drop, right? 187 would be quite a ways. So I think it sets up for a move lower is what I'm getting at here initially. We'll have to see what happens. All right, what's next on Coinbase? After Coinbase, APA. Are you guys familiar with APA?
No, I'm not actually.
No, never heard of it. What is it?
APA Corporation.
Let me go take a look here. I get the chart pulled up. Looks like I've looked at this guy before.
It's an energy company, explores and develops, produces natural gas, crude oil, and natural gas liquids.
All right. So natural gas play. You can see this recent run-up. It coincides with, I think, natural gas just overall positive trade. Interesting, we've had this downtrend. Remove some of this old stuff. So energy trade, and in particular, looking at natural gas, looks like we got a bit of a downtrend test and rejection here, and that's the 150-day moving average. Look at how precise it is, you guys, on the 150-day. Woo! Sorry, I like to plug the 150. So anyways, this is interesting. I think the run-up maybe you had, and now we're going to see a continuation lower back, retesting these lows. That would be my guess. And back down to 30. But this will obviously be on natural gas, I think, quite a bit, and how that commodity performs. And if we do get support here, if it recovers above the 20 and can break this trend and get above the 150, that would be really positive, especially because of the 150 here. You might see a pushback towards these highs near 44. But you would want to see a clean break, in my opinion, get above 36 and then start getting interested. What were your thoughts on the technicals on this chart, Sean?
For me, it's the 32.50 level to look out for. If you can draw a line across that, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you can see a little bit of resistance back kind of where your cursor is now. Was that January, February, that kind of time?
Yeah.
A little bit of resistance there, and obviously moving along to kind of 18th of March area, got a little bit of resistance, a little bit of a kind of breakout trade. So it kind of came up and tested below it, and then make a move higher. Didn't quite work out perfectly, but then it came back down again in end of March. And then obviously made a move higher. So coming back down to that level, if we were to continue selling off, of course, that would be my level of entry. I would keep a fairly tight stop loss, probably somewhere around 31. Just might look at this chart, just because you've got that volume profile, and after that, it just kind of drops. So this will be a tight trade, but it'll be kind of a recovery kind of bounce trade that I have in mind. And obviously the one you mentioned, of course, kind of breaking out the trend line, that's another trade setup. But I won't go over that again because you just did that. So yeah.
We do have higher highs and higher lows forming. Should note that. That is positive,
true.
right?
Yeah.
It does, but if you notice that it's the same trend as other energy stocks like the SLB that we showed. We had that major selling on Friday, so we would want to watch on the Monday and Tuesday how it plays out, especially with the things that happened throughout the weekend.
Yeah, I like 3250, Sean, as a level to watch for support if we do get additional selling. And maybe that'd be a nice bit of opportunity if it bounces there because the 50-day moving average would be there. And yeah, you're right, Kaye, though. We got to pay attention to the news for names like this. All the energy names on Monday.
You do also have support from the 11th of December, that kind of double bottom-ish type thing back on the chart. You can see there. If you drew a line from there, then you're kind of sitting on that support now.
Right. Yeah, that's a good call.
You're kind of sitting on that point right now. That's interesting.
Yeah, this is a good chart. I see why you request to bring this one up. I appreciate that request for sure. Let's see here.
Next is AGI.
AGI. Ooh, I see a couple other names coming in. All right. Alamos Gold. Oh, this must be a gold trade. Look at this move. Gold has been absolutely on fire. You guys trade gold at all? I'm wondering if it is a gold trade. Taking a look.
I actually don't know. No. I remember back in my early days, like testing out the platforms, figuring out what trading was. I used to trade gold on my platform and thinking, oh, well, this is easy, absolutely fine. And then left it for a few days and just kind of dropped, and then that was it. I haven't traded gold since. So maybe I should have another look at it. The naivety,
No, I love it. I'll tell you what, real quick side note. I don't like to invest in gold long term. I like to invest in equities that produce, income and revenues and all that good stuff, like companies. And I've had this such negative bias on investing in gold for the long term that I think it makes it hard for me to trade it in the short term. So, yeah, so that's me and the gold story. Alamos Gold, which is what we're looking at here, AGI, acquisition, exploration, development of precious metals in Canada and Mexico. So let's see, really looking for gold deposits, it looks like. So, yep, gold mining company in Canada and Mexico, very interesting. And the chart looks pretty nice. We had a little bit of consolidation here, and that looks like it's trying to break out and move higher. Big sell-off in gold on Friday. That makes sense. We see this pullback and kind of looking for the Friday low to hold is what I would say, right around 1505 or so. If that can hold, maybe it's going to set up for another leg higher. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if we do get more of a test closer to 1450 back here where this volume is and where we've been bouncing around. Like, that would not surprise me at all either. What do you think about this chart? Who wants to go first? Sean, I'm going to throw it to you again.
Okay, so the high in the 27th of November range, that kind of area. So if we drew a line from there, it's kind of in line with the top line you've drawn at kind of 1508. So that kind of area, so you could actually see a little bit more of a pullback down to the kind of longer term support, if that makes sense. If you get rid of oil, for example.
Yeah.
So you could see that as a bit more of a supportive support, if that makes sense. So that's the line I'll be looking for. Nice, plain and simple. Bit of a breakout trade. I'd like to see a bit more touches around that level. But yeah, it could potentially be that kind of bounce and move it higher.
Get a hold at 1495 here. Yeah, I like that. Kaye, what are your thoughts?
I would see 1453 as my support level. So depending upon how the coming days play, if it can hold and it can continue, inching higher, that would be the first. And then if that breaks, then we are looking at the next volume shelf probably will come out 1377, going all the way to the big one would be 1350. So those are the range, I would say. Because at 1350, if you see the volume shelf is massive. That's where I guess most of the buying is happening.
At 1350?
Yeah, that's where I see on the volume shelf. Gotcha. But the first level I would target is 1453 as my support level.
Yep, that lines up with roughly what I'm seeing. I got 1452, 1453, and then 1370, which 1350 call it. That's about the same. And if we were to look at that, actually, I kind of like 1350. So we had a couple points where we broke above we're able to hold the level. And then when it broke significantly, there was some selling. Once we got back to it, there's additional consolidation. So that 1350 level is definitely worth noting. And then a big breakout move, right? So, yeah, those are good support levels below. I would be looking for first that 1495 that Sean mentioned to hold, and then the retempt to get back to 16. We'll see what happens. It's been quite a move already for sure. And I do know some of the traders I've talked to have taken their profits and most of their profits in gold.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see. What else do we have? Time for one or two more, and then I think we've got Will on the weights, and we'll get him pulled in, and we'll get to some Granite Shares ETFs.
Let's do AMD.
All right, let's drop AMD in here.
I'd like you to have a look at the weekly because I want to see what your thoughts are. I looked at this earlier and I thought, not bad.
Whew.
Just sitting right at the 20 moving average.
It really is. This is a weekly chart here. This candle right here is not my favorite.
No.
You can see that that's at a reversal. So this is a key spot, I would say. I'm with you. We're right at the 20, and then you've had some support right here about 164. We're a little bit below it, but that's okay. We've gotten below it before, right? So yeah, this is an interesting spot for support. I agree with you. Kaye, what are your thoughts on AMD these days?
I'm just waiting for the AMD to fall further so I can get back into trading it.
But you said 163.
yeah, exactly.
Weeks ago.
I did exactly, and so this is also the level for the fib that we have drawn,
Okay.
163.28. So if that breaks, then we actually have a little weakness in the volume shelf, and then the volume shelf really comes around the 148. I would really want to see how it plays out in a couple of days before I actually decide on an AMD trade. But the 147 to 163 is what I would be comfortable getting back into AMD.
Nice. All right. Well, I'm kind of myself. I'll just add my quick comments here. Is I would like to see a big bounce at this level with AMD. I'm a little bit hesitant. The daily chart is showing a bit of a weakness, but you can see the support levels are all here lining up from the daily and the weekly. So yeah, this is a spot, but be below the 50-day with the 20-day moving average crossing below. Not my favorite, especially with this big wick here at the top. Feels like maybe AMD got ahead of itself a little, and I would like to see it consolidate more so than pulling back any further. So 163, I like that you're holding Kaye accountable there, Sean.
I do my best.
Nice. All right. Well, I think that's good for these charts this week. I would love to get to more. I appreciate you guys dropping those requests. I see there's more that we didn't get to, but I want to make sure we have some time to jump over to talk to Will. Before we do, let's just do our usual sentiment wrap up for the week. And for myself, like I mentioned, you guys got earnings coming up. We've got Jay Powell, like you mentioned, Sean talking, just a lot going on, plus the geopolitical news coming out of the weekend. I think I'm going to be a little bit light in my positions if I trade on Monday, and we'll be kind of easing into the week, but definitely ready to pounce on any kind of buy the dip opportunities if we see some support showing up. That's just where my head's at, taking it easy, but also ready to kind of pounce if we get the opportunities. What do you think, Sean? You in the same boat, or do you have different sentiment?
Absolutely. I'm much of the same sort of boat. I'm kind of taking a step back. I'm just reading the charts as well, especially on the kind of bigger time frames. Like I brought up 2 weekly charts today for a reason, just because we're getting that bit of a pullback, bit of a kind of downturn in the markets overall. Then it's time to look at those stocks that you know and you love to kind of see where the entries you are, where you can find your good entries to kind of go longer in the future. So Tesla, AMD, we just brought up just a second ago. So that kind of thought process for me personally. Smaller positions, definitely very volatile at the moment, especially with the geopolitical news you just mentioned. So yeah, just kind of taking it easy, to be honest with you.
Makes sense to me. Kaye, in the same boat?
Same sentiments, and basically just manage the existing positions. And as you said, if opportunity presents, probably get into it, but keep a smaller position.